Have you ever stared at a blank page dreaming of epic battles and magical rounds, but feeling utterly lost on where to begin? I've been there, and I'm here to tell you it does get better. For over 2 decades now, I've been crafting fantasy worlds and filling them with stories both big and small. I've seen the struggles, the late night doubts, and the moments of pure magic when a story finally comes together. And today, I'm going to share the secrets that took me years to discover. In this video, I'll share essential storytelling fundamentals, reveal actionable strategies to build consistent writing habits, and explain why leveraging outside feedback is crucial. Imagine having 25 years of fantasy writing experience distilled into a single video. This is exactly what I'm doing for you here. And the most important part is to start off right. So let me show you the biggest pitfalls even seasoned writers stumble into at times, so you can avoid them from the get-go. Let's start with a mistake I've seen way too many times over the years, one that I had to learn the hard way how to avoid. Picture this: you've spent years crafting your world and you're bursting to show it all off. But here's the harsh truth: your readers don't care about your world, at least not at first. They care about characters, about conflict, about being swept away into a story. Yet so many writers front-load their novels with pages of history, complex magic systems, and intricate political structures. It's not just boring, it's actively pushing readers away and represents the trap of info dumping, or as I like to call it, the kitchen sink syndrome. Why kitchen sink? Because just like a kitchen sink that's piled high with dirty dishes, these manuscripts are overflowing with unnecessary details that clutter the narrative and overwhelm the reader. The solution isn't to cut all that richness, it's to weave it in organically. Think of world building like seasoning a gourmet dish. Too much salt ruins the meal, but the right amount added at the right time elevates everything. Moving on, let's talk about a mistake that has cost countless fantasy novels their chance at greatness. It's a trap I fell into myself when starting to write my own stories, and one I see repeated all the time. I call it the Tolkien temptation. Tolkien's influence on fantasy is obviously undeniable, but here's the problem: too many writers try to replicate his style without understanding why it worked. They create sprawling epics with flowery language, thinking that's what fantasy should be. But here's the secret: Tolkien's style worked because it fit his specific story and world. It's not a universal template. Modern fantasy readers often crave faster pacing, more immediate conflicts, and characters that feel relatable to our time. This doesn't mean you can't write expansive epics, but it does mean you need to find your own voice, one that speaks to modern readers while still capturing the magic of your world. Next, let's address another pitfall that separates good fantasy from truly great fantasy. It's a mistake so common, you might not even realize you're making it. Have you ever read a fantasy novel where every problem seems to have an easy, magical solution? Where the stakes never feel real because there's always a spell or magical artifact to save the day? That's the essence of this pitfall. The most compelling fantasy isn't about how magic solves problems, it's about how characters face challenges despite or even because of magic. To avoid this trap, consider these strategies. First, establish clear limitations for your magic system. What are its costs and what can't it do? Maybe using magic drains life force, or perhaps it has unpredictable side effects. These limitations create tension and force your characters to make difficult choices. Second, use magic to create problems, not just solve them. What if a character's growing magical abilities alienate them from their community? Or what if magic is addictive, tempting your protagonist towards a dark path? Third then is to focus on the human element. Even in a world of wonders, readers connect with relatable struggles. Show how your characters grapple with the moral implications of their magical abilities, or how they maintain their humanity in a world where anything seems possible. Lastly, remember that anticipation often trumps action. The threat of magical consequences can be more gripping than the actual use of magic. Build tension by making your readers wonder not if magic will be used, but should it be used. By implementing these strategies, you create a magical world that feels both wondrous and grounded, where the true conflict lies not in spells and incantations, but in the hearts and minds of your characters as they are confronted with magical elements. Finally, let me share a last pitfall that took me way too long to fully understand. It's about creating antagonists that truly elevate your story. The most memorable antagonists are those with depth, motivation, and even a hint of relatability. Think of Magneto from X-Men. His actions are villainous, but his motivations are understandable. Or consider George R. R. Martin's approach, where characters occupy shades of grey rather than black and white. Now, don't get me wrong, there is absolutely a place for the archetypical Dark Lord in fantasy. Sometimes a purely evil villain can be exactly what your story needs. The key is to make this a conscious choice though, not a default. So to avoid this pitfall, dig deep into your villain's psyche. What drives them? What do they believe they are fighting for? A well-crafted antagonist can elevate your entire narrative, creating conflict that feels real and stakes that truly matter. Now, while some of these pitfalls might seem subtle to you, just by addressing them, you can already transform your stories for the better. Remember, the path to mastery in fantasy writing isn't just about what you put in, it's also about what you leave out and how you shape what remains. After navigating the treacherous waters of common pitfalls, let's anchor your writing journey with something crucial next. Are you struggling to keep a consistent writing routine? Because if you are, you're not alone, I can promise you that. It's one thing to dream up fantastic worlds, but bringing them to life on the page? That's where the real challenge begins. Here's the truth, the magic of fantasy writing doesn't come from sporadic bursts of inspiration. It comes from showing up day after day, even when the words don't flow easily. Now, I can already hear your objections, but I've got a job, family commitments, a social life. Where am I supposed to find all this time? Don't worry, I'm not going to tell you to quit your day job or become a hermit. Instead, let me show you how to weave writing into the fabric of your daily life. First, make sure to harness the power of micro sessions. Forget about needing hours of uninterrupted time. Can you find 15 minutes in your day? Maybe during your lunch break or right after you wake up. Those small pockets of time can add up to significant progress if you use them consistently. To maximize these moments, try this. Keep a notebook or phone with you at all times. Waiting for the bus? That's time to jot down character ideas. Standing in line at the grocery store? Perfect opportunity to brainstorm plot twists. This approach not only increases your writing time, but also trains your brain to be in a constant state of creative readiness. Now, while these stolen moments are valuable, it's also important to create a dedicated writing sanctuary. This doesn't have to be a whole room. It could be a corner of your bedroom, a specific chair at your local coffee shop, or even a particular playlist that signals to your brain it's time to write. The key is consistency. When you enter this space or trigger this cue, your mind knows it's time to step into your fantasy world. But what about those days then when motivation is low and the blank page looks more daunting than a dragon's lair? This is where the power of habit comes in. Set a specific time for writing, even if it's just for 30 minutes. Ideally, you do this every day, but if that absolutely doesn't work for you, pick as many days of the week as possible and then treat it like any other important appointment. Show up whether inspiration strikes or not. On particularly challenging days, try the 5-minute rule. Promise yourself you'll write for just 5 minutes. That's it. Often, you'll find that once you start, you'll want to keep going. And if not, well, you still wrote for 5 minutes, and that's a win. Remember, consistency trumps intensity every time. Writing 500 words a day, every day, will get you further than sporadic 5,000 words marathons followed by weeks of inactivity. To reinforce these habits, don't underestimate the power of accountability. Consider finding a writing buddy, joining a local writing group, or participating in online writing challenges. Knowing that someone is expecting to see your progress can be a powerful motivator, turning your solitary pursuit into a shared journey. Building a consistent writing habit isn't about willpower or waiting for the muse to strike. It's about creating systems that make writing an integral part of your daily life. Every best-selling author started exactly where you are now, with a dream and a blank page. The difference? They showed up day after day and did the work. And with these habits in place, you will too. Now that we've established the importance of consistent writing habits, let me take you into the heart of what makes fantasy novels truly captivating. Storytelling fundamentals. Remember this, great stories aren't written, they are rewritten. This insight will guide you as I share the essential components that form the backbone of compelling narratives. Think of your story as a magical potion. Each element we're about to discuss is an ingredient that, when mixed just right, creates a brew so intoxicating your readers won't be able to put it down. First in our cauldron of creativity are characters. In fantasy, it's easy to get caught up in world building and magical systems, but at its core, every great story is about people, or beings, that readers can relate to on a human level. As such, your protagonist should have clear goals, relatable flaws, and a distinct voice. Try this. Write a journal entry from your protagonist's perspective, exploring their deepest fears and desires. This exercise can uncover nuances that will make your character leap off the page. Your readers should be able to answer, what does this character want? What's stopping them from getting it? And how do they change throughout the story? Now, let's stir in some conflict, the spice that gives your story its kick. In fantasy, you have the unique opportunity to create conflicts on multiple levels. Internal struggles, interpersonal drama, and epic clashes that could reshape entire worlds. The key is to ensure these conflicts are interconnected and escalate as your story progresses. Here's a trick. Create a conflict map. Draw your protagonist in the center, then branch out to other characters, factions, and even abstract concepts like fate or nature. Draw lines between these elements, noting how they conflict. This visual representation can help you weave a complex, engaging web of tensions that will keep your readers on the edge of their seats. Next, we'll sprinkle in some world building, this secret ingredient that gives fantasy its distinctive flavor. But beware, too much of this potent spice can overwhelm your story. The secret is to treat your world like a character in itself. Reveal its quirks, history, and rules gradually through the experiences of your protagonists. For each scene you write, challenge yourself to naturally incorporate just one or two unique aspects of your world. It could be a cultural custom, or a magical phenomenon, or an environmental feature. This approach will help you create a rich, immersive world without resorting to information dumps that can bore your readers faster than a lecture on the mating habits of mountain trolls. Although some people might actually find that fascinating, but I digress. Let's talk about pacing next, the rhythm that keeps your story's heart beating. If character is the heart of your story and conflict is the blood pumping through its veins, then pacing is the steady beat that keeps it all moving. Think of your story as a roller coaster. It should have thrilling highs, quiet moments for breath, and a rhythm that keeps readers engaged. Focus on varying your scene lengths and balancing action with introspection. A good rule of thumb is to follow each high-intensity scene with a quieter moment, allowing your readers and characters to catch their breath before the next plunge. Moving on, let's talk about theme, the invisible thread that ties your narrative together. Theme is the underlying message or big idea that your fantasy story explores. It could be the corrupting influence of power, the blurred lines between good and evil, or the tension between tradition and progress. Here's a fun exercise. Imagine your theme is a mischievous sprite whispering in your character's ears. The key is to let this sprite work its magic without drawing attention to itself. After all, the best themes are felt, not preached. Your readers should finish your book feeling like they've discovered something profound, without realizing they've been gently guided to that discovery all along. And from here, let's give our magical brew some structure, the bones that hold everything together. While there are many structural models out there, from the classic 3-act structure to the hero's journey, the important thing is to have a clear beginning focused on introducing the character and the problem, a middle for escalating conflicts and challenges, and an end as the ultimate climax and eventual resolution. These are the fundamentals that you definitely should focus on. But of course, no fantasy potion would be complete without that final magical touch. Whether your system is soft and mysterious or hard and rule-based, it should feel consistent and integrated into your world. Magic should create as many problems as it solves, adding depth to your conflicts. Here's a trick. For every spell or magical ability you create, think of at least 2 potential negative outcomes. This will help you develop a magic system that feels balanced and consequential. Magic without a price is like a dragon without fire. Impressive, but not nearly as exciting, so we definitely want to avoid that. With all this in mind though, remember, these storytelling elements are like ingredients in a complex spell. They don't work in isolation, they interact, amplify each other, and create something greater than the sum of their parts. Now if you found anything useful in the video so far, please consider giving it a like to help me grow the channel. Thank you. Alright, it's time to roll up our sleeves and dive into drafting. Drafting is the process of writing your first complete version of the story. It's different from outlining, editing, or revising. Think of it as laying down the foundation and framework of your house before you start decorating or fixing up the details. But before we plunge in, let's address the elephant in the room. Or should I say, the dragon in the dungeon. Pun aside, there's no one-size-fits-all approach for drafting. Your perfect method is as unique as a fingerprint, or a snowflake, or a dragon scale pattern. You get the idea. The key is finding your drafting style. Are you a meticulous planner or a seat-of-your-pants adventurer? Maybe you're a bit of both. So let's explore these approaches and find the one that unleashes your creativity. Some writers thrive on structure. If you're the type who color codes your sock drawer, this might be for you. Detailed outlining offers several benefits. First, there's clarity of direction. You always know where your story is heading. Then there's efficiency because of less time staring at blank pages wondering what next. There's also easier revisions because major plot issues are often ironed out in the outline stage. Now, to create an effective outline, start broad by jotting down major plot points. Break it down next by dividing your story into chapters or scenes. Then add detail. For each scene, note the key events, character motivations, and any world-building elements you want to include. But how do you stick to your outline without feeling constrained, you might ask yourself? Well, here's a tip. Treat your outline like a roadmap, not a ball and chain. If you discover an intriguing side street, feel free to explore. Just make sure you can find your way back to the main road. Leaving outlining behind us, if you're the type who packs for vacation 10 minutes before leaving, discovery writing or pantsing might be your jam instead. Benefits here include spontaneity. Your story can take unexpected, exciting turns. There's also character-driven narratives, as characters often develop more organically. And then there's the thrill of discovery, because you get to enjoy the twists and turns along with your readers. Now, for effective discovery writing sessions, start with a compelling scene or character. Then ask what-if questions to propel the story forward. And finally, write in short bursts, letting your imagination run wild. But how do you maintain direction without an outline, you might ask yourself here? Well, try this. At the end of each writing session, jot down a few possibilities for what might come next. This gives you a loose direction without boxing you in. And if you can't decide on either of these two major approaches, many writers actually combine both methods. You might outline major plot points, but discovery write the scenes, or outline the first half of your novel and pants the rest. The possibilities are as endless as your imagination. But regardless of your approach, there are several techniques that can supercharge your drafting process. So let me share with you these methods next and how they can enhance your writing. First, we have the sprint technique. Here's how it works. Set a timer for 25 minutes and write without stopping. Then take a 5-minute break and repeat. This method, inspired by the Pomodoro technique, helps maintain focus and prevents burnout. It tricks your brain into thinking, I only have to write for 25 minutes, making the task less daunting. Many writers find they can produce several hundred words in a single sprint. Next, let's talk about using placeholders. When you're stuck on a name, description, or specific detail, use a consistent placeholder format and keep moving. This maintains your writing momentum while ensuring easy searchability later. Here's one effective method where PH stands for placeholder. The powerful wizard raised his magical staff, summoning a epic spell description. By using PH at the start of each placeholder, you can easily search for all instances using your word processor's find function. Another useful technique then is the sketch and expand method. Start by writing a bare bones version of your scene focusing only on dialogue and basic actions. Then layer in descriptions, emotions, and sensory details. This approach helps you nail down the scene's structure before getting lost in the details. Here's an example. Sketch: hero enters tavern, meets mysterious stranger, receives cryptic message. And the expanded version then could be: Ared pushed open the creaking door of the Rusty Dagger Tavern, the stench of stale ale assaulting his nostrils. In the shadowy corner, a hooded figure beckoned. The crown of stars awakens, the stranger whispered, pressing a worn map into Ared's trembling hands. Now, if you get to the point of finding yourself completely stuck, try the what-if game. Ask yourself what-if questions to generate ideas. What if the villain is the hero's long-lost sibling? What if the magical artifact is sentient? What if Ared punches the stranger in the face before he can leave? This technique can lead to unexpected and exciting plot twists. And as our last drafting supercharger, consider using music as a mood setter. Create playlists for different types of scenes or characters. The right background music can help you tap into the emotional core of your writing, enhancing your creative flow. With all these drafting techniques in mind, let me share a secret with you that took me years to learn. Your first draft is supposed to be messy. It's not a final product, it's raw material. Embracing imperfection is crucial because it keeps you moving forward instead of getting stuck on perfecting every scene. It allows for unexpected discoveries and creative leaps, and it gives you something tangible to shape and refine in revisions. To overcome perfectionism, set ambitious daily word count goals. Remind yourself that no one ever has to see this first draft, and celebrate the act of creation, not the quality of each word. Remember, even best-selling authors produce messy first drafts. Terry Pratchett once said, "The first draft is just you telling yourself the story." So give yourself permission to write badly. You can't edit a blank page, but you can revise a messy draft into a masterpiece. Now, if you're hungry for even more practical tips, make sure to sign up for my free weekly newsletter to transform your fantasy writing in just 5 minutes a week. You can find the link in the description below. Moving on from the exploration of the art of drafting, let me tell you about a crucial phase that separates good stories from great ones: revision. If you're feeling discouraged about your messy first draft, take heart. You're in excellent company. Even legendary authors such as Stephen King go through at least 2 revisions after finishing their first draft. Revision is where the real magic happens. Let's break down this process into manageable steps, each designed to refine and polish your story. Stage 1, the cooling off period. First things first, step away from your manuscript. I know, you're eager to dive back in, but trust me, distance is your friend here. Give yourself at least a week, preferably more, before you start revising. This cooling off period allows you to approach your work with fresh eyes, making it easier to spot issues and opportunities for improvement. During this time, immerse yourself in other stories. Read books in your genre, watch movies, or play story-rich video games. This refilling of the creative well can spark new ideas for your revision. Stage 2, the big picture read-through. Now grab your manuscript and a comfortable chair. It's time for a cover-to-cover read-through. But here's the trick. Read it as if you are a first-time reader, not the author. Take notes on your overall impressions. Does the plot make sense? Are your characters consistent and compelling? Does your pacing keep you engaged? Look for plot holes, character inconsistencies, and areas where the story lags. Don't worry about line-level edits yet. We're focusing on the forest, not the trees. Stage 3 then, the structural edit. Based on your read-through notes, it's time to tackle the big issues. This might involve rearranging chapters, cutting entire scenes, yes, even ones you love, or adding new material to flesh out underdeveloped areas. Here's a tip: create a chapter-by-chapter outline of your current draft, then create another outline of how you want the story to flow. Comparing these can help you visualize the necessary changes. Our stage 4 is character deep dive. Now let's focus on your characters. For each major character, ask yourself, is their motivation clear and consistent? Does their arc feel satisfying? Is their voice distinct? This is also a great time to ensure your secondary characters aren't just cardboard cutouts. Even minor characters should feel like real people with their own goals and motivations. In stage 5, it's the world building review. For us fantasy writers, this stage is crucial. Go through your manuscript and look for opportunities to deepen your world building. Are there places where you can add sensory details to make your world feel more alive? Are your magic systems and fantastical elements consistent and well explained? Remember, the goal isn't to infodump, but to weave these details seamlessly into the narrative. Stage 6, the language pass. Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. Read your manuscript aloud. Yes, the whole thing. This helps you catch awkward phrasing, repetitive words, and pacing issues. Pay attention to your prose. Is it serving the mood and tone of each scene? This is also the time to kill your darlings. That beautifully crafted sentence you're so proud of? If it doesn't serve the story, it needs to go. Lastly, we have stage 7, the technical edit. This is where it's time to put on your editor's hat. Look for grammar issues, punctuation errors, and spelling mistakes. Check for consistency in names, places, and made-up words. Was it Gryffindor or Gryffindor? Pro tip here, create a style guide for your novel. This should include character names, place names, and any unique terms or spellings you've created. This will be invaluable for maintaining consistency, especially in a series. Now, it is important to note that while I've presented these stages sequentially, the revision process isn't always linear. Depending on your writing style and the needs of your story, you might combine some stages or revisit earlier stages as you go. For instance, you might address character development and world building simultaneously, or you find yourself doing another structural edit after feedback from beta readers. More on that in just a bit. The key is to be flexible and responsive to your story's needs. These stages are guidelines, not rigid rules. Feel free to adapt this process to what works best for you and your novel. But let me get back to the mention of beta readers throughout the editing process. Feedback isn't just a single step in revision. It's a powerful tool that can transform every stage of your writing journey. I'll be honest with you, for years I ignored the importance of external input. I kept my writing close to my chest, afraid of criticism or being dismissive of its value because of the extra work to look at the work of other people while taking their feedback on my own writing into account. With time though, I've learned that this approach was holding me back. In fact, as I prepare to publish a novel of mine publicly for the first time next year, I've made a promise to myself to embrace feedback even more. It truly is a game changer, and I want to share with you why it's so crucial for your writing journey. Feedback is like a mirror for your writing. It reflects aspects of your story that you might be too close to see. Whether it comes from writing groups, beta readers, or professional editors, external perspectives can illuminate blind spots, highlight strengths you might not have recognized, and offer fresh ideas to elevate your narrative. Let me show you how to harness this power effectively at various stages of your writing process. First, there are writing groups. These communities of fellow writers can be invaluable. They understand the craft and can offer specific, actionable advice on everything from plot structure to character development. Here's how to make the most of a writing group. First, be selective. Find a group that matches your genre and skill level. Secondly, start small. Share a chapter or short story before diving into a full manuscript. Third, be open. Listen to all feedback without becoming defensive. And lastly, reciprocate. Offer thoughtful critiques to others. You'll learn as much from analyzing others' work as you will from receiving feedback. Brandon Sanderson has often spoken about the value of his writing group. In his lectures and interviews, he frequently mentions how feedback from fellow writers has helped him refine his work, from tightening plots to improving character arcs. Beta readers, on the other hand, represent your target audience. They can tell you if your story resonates, if your characters are relatable, and if your plot twists are truly surprising. To effectively use beta readers, first, choose wisely again. Select readers who enjoy your genre and will give honest feedback. Secondly, provide guidance. Give them specific questions to consider as they read. Third, be patient. Allow them enough time to read and respond thoughtfully. And lastly, look for patterns. If multiple readers point out the same issue, it's probably worth addressing. But next to writing groups and beta readers, there's another level of feedback that can truly elevate your manuscript: professional editors. These are trained experts who can provide a depth of insight that even the most dedicated amateur cannot. There are several types of professional editing to consider. There's developmental editing. This looks at the big picture, structure, plot, character development, and pacing. A developmental editor can help you identify and fix major issues in your story. Then we have line editing. This focuses on the prose itself, helping you refine your language, improve flow, and enhance your style. After that, we have copy editing. This addresses grammar, punctuation, and consistency issues, ensuring your manuscript is polished and professional. And lastly, there's proofreading. This is the final step to catch any last typos or formatting issues before publication. Now, while professional editing can be a significant investment, it's often the key to taking your manuscript from good to great. Many successful authors credit their editors with helping shape their books into the bestsellers they've become. When choosing a professional editor, consider these steps. Look for experience in your genre. Ask for a simple edit to ensure their style meshes with yours. Be clear about what type of editing you're looking for. And prepare yourself to receive intensive feedback. Remember, they are here to help your book shine. Even if you can't afford a full professional edit, be aware that many editors also offer more affordable services like manuscript assessments or chapter critiques. These can provide valuable insights to guide your own revisions. But leveraging feedback isn't just about receiving critiques, it's about how you use them. Here are some tips for making the most of the feedback you receive. First, let it simmer. Don't react immediately. Give yourself time to process the feedback objectively. Secondly, look for trends. If multiple people are saying the same thing, it's worth serious consideration. But never forget to also trust your gut. While feedback is valuable, remember that it is your story. If a suggestion doesn't align with your vision, it is okay to disregard it. Make sure to revise with purpose. Use feedback as a tool to enhance your story, not to completely change it into someone else's voice. And always express gratitude. Thank people for their time and insights. Remember, even negative feedback can be a gift. It's an opportunity to see your work through fresh eyes and make it even better. As the last major point of our writing journey here, let me address a challenge that every writer faces, regardless of their experience or success, and that is self-doubt. It's not about eliminating these feelings entirely, it's how you respond to them that matters. I'll let you in on a secret. Even after 25 years of writing, I'll still grapple with self-doubt at times. There are days where I stare at my screen convinced that every word I've written is utter nonsense. So when this sounds familiar to you, know that you are not alone. Imposter syndrome, that nagging feeling that you are a fraud and that someone will eventually find out, is particularly common among writers. But here are some techniques I've developed over the years to manage these feelings and stay motivated. First, embrace the doubt. Recognize that self-doubt is part of the creative process. It means you care about your work and want to improve. Use it as a tool for growth rather than a roadblock. Secondly, keep a wins folder. Create a digital or physical folder where you store positive feedback, completed chapters, or any other writing accomplishments. When doubt creeps in, revisit this folder to remind yourself of your progress and capabilities. Next, set achievable goals. Break your writing journey into smaller, manageable tasks. Completing these bite-sized goals will give you a sense of progress and boost your confidence. Also make sure to practice self-compassion. Treat yourself with the same kindness you'd offer a friend. Would you tell a friend they are a terrible writer? Probably not in these words. Extend that same courtesy to yourself. Remember why you started. Reconnect with your initial passion for storytelling. What drew you to fantasy writing in the first place? Let that excitement fuel you through moments of doubt. Also make sure to separate yourself from your work. Your writing is not you. It's something you create. This distinction can help you view criticism, including self-criticism, more objectively. Another technique is to connect with other writers. Share your struggles with fellow writers. You'll likely find that even authors you admire face similar doubts. This solidarity can be incredibly reassuring. Also make sure to focus on the process, not the outcome. Instead of worrying about whether your book will be good enough, focus on the joy of creation, enjoy the act of writing itself, and challenge your negative thoughts. When self-doubt whispers, "You're not a real writer," challenge it. Where's the evidence? The fact that you're writing makes you a writer, period. And while you write, keep learning and growing. Continually honing your craft can boost your confidence. Attend workshops, read books, and practice regularly. Knowledge and skill are powerful antidotes to self-doubt. So use these techniques to acknowledge your doubts, then gently set them aside and keep writing. You now have the tools and insights to bring your unique vision to life. But remember, these are just guidelines. The true adventure begins when you face that blank page. And since every narrative starts with a first page, ask yourself, could your novel's opening be dooming your entire story? Check out this video here where I expose 8 deadly mistakes that kill your reader's interest instantly, so you can avoid them and not let your hard work go to waste.